Hi, I'm Michelle, and I'm going to read to you Chanukah on the Prairie, a book written by Rabbi Burt Schuman, who is the rabbi of a congregation in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And it is the story of a family that comes from Eastern Europe to the United States, to America, and winds up in North Dakota, where they have their first Hanukkah in America. So here we go. It was a dry summer and a dry fall for the villagers of Nadvorna, the little village in eastern Galicia. The wheat crop had failed, and for Jew and non-Jew alike, this meant hard times. Food was scarce in the town, and few of the farmers could afford to buy what the Jews had to offer. It will be a grim Rosh Hashanah, sighed Reb. It will be a grim Rosh Hashanah, sighed Reb Yitzchak Zalcman, a silversmith and watchmaker. And a cold and hungry winter too, sighed his wife Fruma. Together, they let out a big groan. Neither Reb Yitzchak nor Fruma had the heart to tell their children, 8-year-old Daniel and 10-year-old Miriam, that they were thinking of leaving Nadvorna. They had been born in Nadvorna, just like their parents and their grandparents before them. The Zalcmans, like all the Jews of Nadvorna, loved the Austrian Empire of Franz Joseph II, whom the Jews of Galicia lovingly called Freiem Yosef. Under his rule, the Jews lived in safety and peace, though they were often very poor. But Freiem Yosef won't put bread on our tables or shoes on our children's feet, grumbled Reb Motel Eisenstein, as he and Yitzchak sat next to each other at the shul. There is only one thing to do. Leave Nadvorna, leave Europe, and go to America. America, thought Reb Yitzchak to himself, the golden Medina, the golden land, where a poor Jew from the shtetl could become a millionaire. America, cried Fruma. What will we do in America? How will we survive? America, shouted Miriam. America, shouted Daniel, where a Jew can truly be somebody. Yes, let's go to America. Here they are, rejoicing, excited. 3 weeks later, the Zalcman were busy packing for America. They sold everything they could, except for their Shabbat candlesticks and the little bit they could carry with them. They made hurried farewells as their friends and neighbors came to see them off. For 3 days and nights, the Zalcmans rode in a cramped train compartment. Plains turned into hills, and hills turned into mountains again and again. Finally, the train chugged past factories and warehouses and came to a noisy halt in the port of Hamburg, Germany. Here they are, saying goodbye to all their friends, getting on the train. The next morning, they boarded the ship. For 12 days, the Zalcmans huddled together in steerage, their stomachs rising and falling with the rough waves of the North Atlantic. Finally, someone shouted, "There it is, the American coastline!" And all the children on board rushed toward the railing. Past the Verrazano Narrows, she came into focus, the Lady of the Harbor, the Statue of Liberty. Miriam and Daniel could not stop cheering and shouting. They filed off the ship and took the ferry to Ellis Island, where they spent hours going to one line after another and being asked the same questions over and over. Just as they were about to board a ferry for New York, a frantic young man bounded up to them, waving his arms and shouting, "Yidden, Yidden, Jews, Jews. Please don't take that ferry to New York. If you do, you'll end up living and working in terrible conditions. Those streets are not paved with gold, but with cinders, soot, sweat, and germs. We want to help you find a better future." The young man offered the Zalcmans free train tickets to a place called Grand Forks, North Dakota. Reb Yitzchak and Fruma looked at each other and made a quick decision. They had never before heard of such a place, but the chance to live the life of a farmer in the fresh air and open spaces of the prairie sounded better than city living. The stranger tried to assure them that they were making the right choice. Yes, he said, smiling, there are Jews there and kosher markets and a shul. I'll wire ahead to the Jewish community that you are coming. You'll be surprised to see how much it feels like home. The family took the ferry west to Hoboken, New Jersey, and soon were on a train for the Dakotas. The coastline blended into mountains, and mountains into forests, forests into rolling hills, and rolling hills into broad plains that reminded them of Eastern Galicia. Fruma sighed with happiness at the familiar sights. They had been on the train for nearly 2 whole days when at last they heard the conductor call out, "Grand Forks!" The Zalcmans lumbered out of the train, carrying, lifting, pushing, and dragging their bags among them. Once they were on the platform, a man in a fur hat, a fur-lined coat, and gray beard waved hurriedly in their direction. "Shalom Alechem," he shouted. "Welcome to Grand Forks." "Alechem Shalom," Rabbi Yitzchak responded, and hurried to shake the man's hand. "My name is Shmuel Rabinovich, and I am the president of the Jewish Community Council," he said in Yiddish. "Welcome to Grand Forks. Welcome to America." The Zalcmans looked around with a mixture of joy and puzzlement. Past the neat center of town with its white-framed houses and its handsome red brick building lay a vast prairie, as vast as the eye could see and the mind could imagine. So different and yet so familiar. Though it was November, they could imagine the rustling of millions of sheaves of wheat. Reb Rabinovich had already arranged everything. A job for Reb Yitzchak in Mr. Slotkin's watch and clock repair shop, a furnished apartment on the top floor of Mrs. Shapiro's house on 6th Street, English lessons with Mr. Bergson, who also taught in the high school, an icebox filled with kosher meat and produce, and cupboards filled with flour, sugar, canned fish, and other staples, all put together by the sisterhood at the local synagogue. Fruma was stunned. The children enrolled in school and soon realized they were not the only ones who needed to learn English. There were children from Norway, Sweden, and Finland. There were also Polish, Ukrainian, and German children, as well as Jews, just like in Galicia. The women of the sisterhood lovingly sewed and embroidered curtains for the ark and mantles of the Torah scrolls, and they invited Fruma to join them. When they were finished, they made quilts and bedding for the spring, when the Zalcmans would be going out into the fields to claim a plot of land for themselves and build a sod house to stake their claim. Meanwhile, the women shared stories of life in their new land, traded recipes and other useful information, and gossiped, just like in Galicia. Miriam and David joined the other Jewish boys and girls for Hebrew lessons with Rabbi Papermaster, the rabbi of Congregation B'nai Israel. This was different than in Galicia, where only the boys studied Hebrew. Rabbi Papermaster had a beautiful tenor voice, like the great cantors of Krakow and Lemberg, and he had a terrible temper as well, just like in Galicia. Reb Yitzchak discovered that after morning prayer, B'nai Israel's officers would start arguing and screaming at each other in Yiddish, just like in Galicia. There they are, all the men arguing with each other. November turned into December, and soon a blanket of snow covered the prairie. Chanukah was coming, and the Jewish community of Grand Forks was in a flurry of activity. There were Chanukiot to polish, dreidels to carve, Chanukah gelt to gather, candles to make, songs and blessings to rehearse, and of course, latkes to prepare. On a cold, crisp December night, the Jews of Grand Forks, young and old, old-timer and newcomer, gathered with their Chanukiot, their dreidels, their gelt, their small, simply wrapped gifts, and filled the length and breadth of B'nai Israel's social hall. The room was filled with the smell of latkes frying in oil. All the people gathered for Chanukah. Together with the rabbi, they recited the blessings. Blessed are you, eternal our God, sovereign of the universe, who has made us holy by your commandments and has commanded us to light the Chanukah candles. Miriam chanted the next blessing with a clear voice that amazed even her parents. Blessed are you, eternal our God, sovereign of the universe, who has performed miracles for our ancestors in times past and in our time. Daniel led the Zalcman family in the final blessing. Blessed are you, eternal our God, who has kept us alive, who has sustained us, and has brought us to this season. With the lights of dozens of Chanukah reflecting in the glass and dancing forth onto the prairie, the entire community replied, Amen v'amen. Parents drew their children close and hugged them tightly. Chag Sameach, good Yontif, happy Chanukah, just like in Galicia. The end.